What's up, peeps? We're back. As always, I'm your host, Lee Benson. Thank you so much for joining us for our YouTube edition of the AEW Insider. As always, we got a heck of a show. We got some AEW news, some WWE news, some great random wrestling and sporting news, plus a lot more. Remember, if you want to win that Bray Wyatt Firefly Funhouse Ringside Collectibles exclusive action figure, you gotta stick around to the end of the show. As always, since this is the AEW Insider, let's kick it off with a little AEW news. AEW. Well, Sammy Guevara was supposed to be in on the Impact Wrestling crossover storyline, but once again, he is in big trouble with AEW management. We know a few months ago, last year, an old video of him popped up saying something like, "Sasha Banks is so hot, I just want to rape her," which is just fucking insane. So that actually leaked, people dug it up, and the AEW took him off TV for a while, but he worked his way back in. It is said that Impact Wrestling received a message directly from Guevara, complaining about the creative direction. Impact in turn contacted Tony Khan and Chris Jericho. Jericho reached out to Impact Executive Vice President Don Callis about banning Guevara from Impact's premises. According to reports, Impact Wrestling had Black Taurus of Decay utilized in a similar role as the Sammy would have been used. Impact Wrestling officials claim there are no issues with AEW and that the relationship between the two companies is golden. Cody Rhodes recently spoke to the New York Post about the potential for more crossovers. Cody said, "There's no reason that there couldn't be a potential WWE crossover one day. And I don't mean that's a thing that's been discussed or happening. But none of those rules that exist for other places exist for us. Wrestling is really this universal industry. The territory reference that you made, that's fairly accurate, but the part of it that's most accurate was that it was genuine trust. Eddie Graham and Vince McMahon Sr., they traded people all the time and made prolific pieces of business out of it. And they did it in a way where they introduced these characters in New York, and the next thing you know, they introduced these characters in Florida. And it kept things fresh because, above all, Wednesday Night War or not, the main thing we have to do for our fans for the rest of this run, I want this company to be around forever. It is to keep it fresh. It can't get stale. Our doors are always open if business is right, if the moment is right, if the time is right. And I'll be the one AEW guy to make sure it's all good." Then while appearing on Wrestle Fetish podcast, Tony Khan brought up WWE. He said, "They are more than welcome, as I have said. The forbidden door is open any time. Just come and knock. If they were to knock on the door, then I would certainly be willing to let them in." On to WWE. Well, an old skeleton from WWE's closet is peeking its head out. Years ago, WWE officials, including Director of Wrestling Operations Terry Garvin, ring announcer Mel Phillips, and Pat Patterson, were all accused of sexual misconduct. The sex scandal was also covered on the Phil Donahue show. Tom Cole, the accuser in that scandal, recently committed suicide. His brother then sent out a scathing tweet blaming WWE for his siblings' untimely death. He accused the company of letting in child molesters and covering it up as well. It read, "My brother Tom committed suicide a couple hours ago. Vince McMahon and his wife Linda let child molesters into their companies years ago and did everything possible to cover up what they did to my brother. I hope you can sleep good at night, Vince. Our family suffers. Thank you." Then journalist David Bixenspan provided some clarity into the situation. He tweeted in reply to this message from Tom Cole's brother to reiterate that Cole never changed his story about what happened to him. As his brother Lee tweeted below, Tom Cole, 50, the central accuser in the WWE Ring Boy molestation scandal, killed himself tonight. I'll have a lot more to say, but this fucking sucks. If you don't know his story, then you can start with my BI feature from October. Something I should make clear, as I have a feeling it may come up. Tom Cole never changed his story. Yes, there were periods where he was more forgiving of the McMahons and WWE, and yes, as more time passed, he got more vague in public about what happened, but he never changed his story. Pat Patterson, Terry Garvin, and Mel Phillips all resigned from WWE after the scandal. Patterson later returned to the company, and WWE has cut a ton of footage with Mel Phillips from the WWE network. NXT TakeOver Vengeance Day was Sunday night, and it did not disappoint. NXT TakeOvers rarely do. It was a great solid pay-per-view overall. During the pre-show, an ex-Impact and NWA star showed up. It was none other than Eli Drake. He has been signed to WWE, and he now goes by the name of L.A. Knight. He put all champions on NXT on notice. Triple H spoke about Drake in his first run in WWE. He said, "I don't think there's a ceiling to anybody when they walk into the door. I reevaluate or evaluate everybody as they're walking in the door. My hope is that all of them have the potential at one point in time to garner whatever they need to become as big as performers they can here. I have been a fan of LA Knight since he was here the first time. There's a lot of reasons on his side and our side as to why it didn't work out that time." Also, rumors are that Mrs. John Morrison, Taya Valkyrie, has signed with WWE, and they also signed Evolve star Harlem Bravado. Anyway, here are the results for NXT TakeOver Vengeance Day, and I pretty much killed it with my picks for the pay-per-view. We had the Women's Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic Finals, which was Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez versus Ember Moon and Shotzi Blackheart. I picked Kai and Gonzalez, and Kai and Gonzalez won. It would be great to see those two win the belts and pop up all over like on Raw and SmackDown. We also had the Men Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic Finals. It was MSK versus the Grizzled Young Veterans. I picked MSK to win, and MSK did win. Good for the Rascals. We had the North American Championship up for grabs, which was Johnny Gargano versus Kushida. I picked Gargano to win, and Gargano retained his title. It was a great match, and those two beat the shit out of each other. We had the NXT Women's Championship up for grabs. It was Io Shirai versus Toni Storm versus Mercedes Martinez. I picked Io to win, and Io did win. It was another great match. And finally, we had the NXT Championship match, which was Finn Balor versus Pete Dunne. I picked Pete Dunne, and Balor won. So that was the only match I got wrong for the whole pay-per-view. Not bad. After the match, Undisputed came out. O'Reilly gave Finn Balor props in the ring. They all posed together, and then out of nowhere, Adam Cole super kicked the fuck out of Balor. Riley had a problem with what his Undisputed brother did, so Cole super kicked Kyle O'Reilly also. Roderick Strong was standing there in shock. Adam Cole left the ring. It will be great to see where the storyline goes starting this Wednesday night. Lacey Evans is pregnant. People think it was just part of the storyline that they were showing on Raw, but it isn't. Lacey really is pregnant in real life, so we want to say congratulations. MVP was injured on Raw last night. Everybody thought it was a work, but come to find out, it is a real injury. After suffering an injury on last night's edition of Monday Night Raw, MVP traveled this morning to Birmingham, Alabama. That was confirmed by PW Insider, and there's no other words right now of the nature of the injury. Rumors are that Randy Orton smoked weed with Snoop Dogg for the first time before WrestleMania 25. Orton seen this and he had this to tweet in response. It was a pic of him and Snoop Dogg, and Orton wrote, "It's come to my attention that I smoked some ganja for the first time with Snoop Dogg at WrestleMania 24, not 25. P.S. It wasn't my first time, you marks, but the first time was with Snoop motherfucking D-O-double-G, pre-game, not post-game." So it looks like some of the fans got some of the facts wrong, but Randy Orton definitely blazed with Snoop, and he retained his title against Triple H later that night. On to some random wrestling and sporting news. During an appearance on Hot Ones, Kevin James spoke about how he and Mick Foley were on the same high school wrestling team. You can check out the highlights on this week's episode of Hot Ones. On Wrestling Mick Foley, James said, "I played football and never wrestled before, but they needed another heavyweight to go with Mick on the team, so they brought me over and we had some battles. I used to throw him around a little more. I think I was in better shape then." On Foley jumping off his roof, "That's where the mind for pro wrestling was developing. I remember him jumping off his roof on cardboard boxes. He was just doing these weird things, but he was the nicest guy ever. He's incredible. He writes children's books. He does so much for charity. He's just a great, great guy. But he's definitely a little off. Come to find out that Chris Jericho's wife was at the Capitol riots. Tons of pics had popped up of her and her girl power crew in attendance that day. As you know, by watching this show, I am a big fan of Konan and Disco Inferno's podcast called Keeping It 100. Well, Konan has been calling out Tony Khan about his booking of AEW. Khan heard what Konan said and had this to say in reply. I'll give you guys a pull-out quote for this, so hopefully you'll get a lot more interest for the show. I seen Konan call my booking into question, which I find very amusing. Very amusing. Konan, if I recall, was the biggest money angle you had the entire year. I booked it. I put the entire Lucha Brothers vs. Young Bucks program together and sent the whole outline for you. I still have it on my phone. And that was your biggest money angle of 2019 and your biggest TV show. So if I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know if you do either. That being said, I really do like Konan. I would have never ever said anything like that unless he never talked about me first. But I like working with AAA. I like working with Konan. We got champions working here, and they have worked with them. I've heard Konan on the show with Disco Inferno say some stuff, but our working relationship has always been very good. So I thought what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Alright, peeps, well that's it for this episode. Remember, if you want to win that Bray Wyatt Firefly Funhouse ringside collectible action figure, all you have to do is stay right here on the AEW Insider and be a subscriber. If you're not, make sure you do so. Besides that, pick any video, including this one, like, share, and comment. So subscribe to the AEW Insider on YouTube, like, share, and comment, and when we hit 500 subs, I will be doing a drawing and sending out that action figure. Remember to show us some love on all major podcasting platforms, also on Facebook and YouTube under the AEW Insider, and on Twitter under the AEW Insider 1, as in the number 1. Remember, we got WWE's Big Elimination Chamber coming up this Sunday, so I will be doing another show either Friday or Saturday night to give my predictions from it. It's crazy. That's the last live event my daughter was at with myself last March, and that was the last WWE big pay-per-view that they actually had people in attendance at. A couple of weeks later, Corona hit. It's fucking crazy how life works out. Anyway, peeps, I love you. Thank you for the support, and I'll see you in a couple days. Ciao.